My process is everybody's not going to make it.
Mm. Welcome to Pan African Lifestyle, the ultimate Pan African hub. I am your host, Harrison Paul, and we post here regularly. So please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, as we would not want you to miss a thing. If you're a PAL, short for Pan African Lifestyler, welcome home. Here at PAL, we build community, celebrate culture, and grow collective capital, all in pursuit of one powerful goal, that is actualizing the African dream. Today's guest is a visionary. She's the co-founder of African Ancestry and a pioneer in helping people of African descent reconnect with their roots through DNA lineage tracing. Please welcome the one and only Dr. Paige, Gina Paige, to the Pan African Hub. Gina, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's honestly a pleasure to have you on. The work that you do really is doing so much for the community. And I've got stories to share with you about how powerful it is. So I can't wait to get into it. But Dr. Gina, you've helped over 1 million people of African descent trace their roots to specific countries and ethnic groups. What first inspired you to create African Ancestry, and how has this journey impacted your own identity?
Hmm. Well, I co-founded African Ancestry with an African American geneticist, Dr. Rick Kittles. And it was really Dr. Kittles' dream to want to know where in Africa he comes from. And it just sort of evolved. His research evolved to the point where he was then able to tell anyone of African descent where they come from. And when we were introduced, it was because he was looking for a partner to commercialize his research. So my introduction to this work was really from a business perspective. I was intrigued by the idea of creating something that has never existed before. It's very rare that someone has the opportunity to do that. Most things are a derivative of something that has come before. But
Right,
before we launched this company in February of 2003, there was no way to use
right,
DNA to know where specifically in Africa you share
right,
ancestry. And so it was the opportunity to do something new, to do it entrepreneurially, and then to do it for the group of people that I'm passionate about, which is Black people.
wow, wow, amazing, amazing.
And then in terms
Eh,
of the impact it's had on me, um, we don't have enough time to talk about that. No, the impact on my identity, hmm, well, it's given me perspective. Learning my ancestry has
right,
certainly given me perspective, excuse me, particularly on my paternal line, where I have a Hausa lineage, and I understand that Hausa women are often very much business drivers, and so
mhm,
within that community and culture. So that helped to put my work into context. But I also think that from an identity perspective, it has helped me to understand my purpose and my journey better. I see it before. I didn't know what my purpose is. And even if you ask me that now, I'm not sure that I would have an answer. But I
mhm,
recently saw something that said your purpose is the thing that you do that positively impacts others. And so
right,
if you use that definition, then this certainly is my purpose, and it is ancestor given, ancestor
mhm,
appointed, because I did not set out to do this and for this to become what it has
right.
become.
Amazing. For you to have found this purpose, I want to start by saying a quick little story of mine where I learned how important it was for African Americans to know their lineage. I was 19 and I moved to Los Angeles, and I remember I bumped into a group of guys there. I was staying at an Airbnb. I was in LA. I did the cliche. I'll go to LA and make something of myself jump across who I'm thinking I just bump into any celebrity walking on the street, really. But I was raised in Ireland, very naive, and I went over there, and I remember I met this young black man. I was living with him in an Airbnb. But it was a big accommodation, a few of them there, and in Ireland, when we meet another African, the first thing you ask one of them, "Oh, where are you from?" I'm Congolese, or I'm Cameroonian, or I'm Nigerian, or it's just one of the things where once you get that, you understand more of who that person is, how they move, how they go. You know what I mean? Just the identity, I guess. So if he's Congolese, you kind of know his culturally how he operates. So I remember being so naive and not knowing my history at all, 19 years old, and really just so uninformed. I said, "Well, where you from, brother?" And I remember he goes, "Oh, yeah, I'm from Washington." So now in Ireland, when someone does that, they'll say, "Oh, I'm from Dublin." You know that he's actually trying to hide. He's embarrassed that he's from like Congo. He's embarrassed that he's from, the way they've demonized being African, right? So I'm just thinking, dog, like, come on, where you really from? I asked him, like, where you from? And it's like, and I remember then his face shifted of like, oh no, like like I said, we're in Africa. Oh, my family, my whole family, like, we were from Washington, and this moment is so important because I remember a shame ran through his body, you know, that an African person, or rather can say someone who knew where they're from would never find themselves in this shame. And then he starts to then say, but I'm thinking of getting my ancestry done. I had that planned. And he's like scampering, trying now to find this identity. And I'm 19 and I'd never seen anybody fight to be African. I came from European Africans who are fighting to be European, to run away from the identity. And this was a pivotal moment for me. So to be here today is really kind of a full circle moment. And the job that you do is so important. And I
Mhm.
wanted to know, like, even with regards to, African Americans, should I say, how has African ancestry shifted how Black people view their connection with, the continent?
It makes it, well, African ancestry has shifted the way that African Americans and those from the Caribbean and everywhere outside of Africa really view where they come from on the continent because it gives us a place. It
Right,
gives us a tangible place.
right,
Before we say we are African American or Afro
right,
Latino or whatever, you put the
right,
Africa in front of it. And in doing that, we get to claim the entire continent, which is incredible. We get to claim the best continent. But as we all know, everyone watching this, that there are thousands of languages and traditions and cultural practices. And,
right.
there's no such thing as an African identity per se. Like you can
Yeah,
get much
right,
deeper than that, is what I'm trying to say. So it gives us a tangible connection. It gives us a sense of pride. I see that
right,
repeatedly. It
right,
gives us
right,
a sense of place and it gives us a sense of belonging. Those are the
right,
the three things that I see
right,
consistently across the board.
right. And of course, I know loads of popular figures, and Dr. Umar being one of them. And I'm just thinking of his style of how he presents himself. But do you feel like I don't know if you know anybody close to you or anything, doing this job over a while, you probably get, build rapport with loads of people. Did you feel like you began to see that shift in the influence in their lifestyle or their values or even their fashion? Do you feel like once someone began to understand, oh, wait, I'm Nigerian, did you kind of see that even from a spiritual level, something shifted?
Absolutely. I think not everybody, and I
Right.
haven't seen everybody, but in my experience, I see the shift all the time. I mean, I have
Wow.
friends and now acquaintances or I'll say African ancestry family members who have changed their names. They have started businesses. A lot of creatives have created works of art, be it music or books or films or plays. Um, there's definitely a sense of, among some people, a segment of people of wanting to embrace the dress and the style and the fashion of the people that they share ancestry with. So yeah, you can definitely see a palpable shift. Again, not everybody, because see, people take this test for different reasons. There are or there are different motivations for
Right,
why
right,
they're taking the test. So
right,
depending on what your motivation was for taking the test, how you receive and interact
Mm-hmm.
with the results can differ. I've seen that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And when someone then, reclaims their DNA and, do you feel like DNA, some people argue that DNA is not enough to reclaim identity. And that's why you're saying some people transform and then some people do. Is it enough?
So no one's ever asked me that question before, and my initial reaction was to kind of roll my eyes. I was trying to control my face. I don't know if anybody saw that because you know, I don't know what that means. Is it enough? So my initial reaction is, yeah, it's enough. I mean, what else do you need? It's enough to it's a I see it this way. When you find out where you're, let me even take it back a step further because you and I have just meeting for the first time. So
Right.
if you think about us as African Americans, and it's the
Right.
same for people in the Caribbean, we lost our identities. Our identities were stolen. I call it identity theft. We are the original victims of identity theft. We lost our
Right.
names. We lost our
Mm-hmm.
languages. We lost the freedom to honor our ancestors. And our families were continually torn apart, sold apart for 400 years.
Right.
So if you don't know your name, you can't speak to the people around you, you don't know where your family is, then I don't care what you say, you cannot know who you are.
Right.
Now, obviously, we know who we are. We have some sense of self, but there's a void, whether you realize it or not.
Right.
When you find out where you're from, and the only way to do that is through DNA for
Right.
the vast majority of us, there are some
Right.
spiritual, of course. Um, it's like you're plugging into your power source.
Right. Right.
And that in and of itself is enough to me. Now,
Right.
what you do once you plug in, that's extra. That's external. It could be spiritual, internal that no one can see, but that's extra. Just being plugged into me is enough. But I
Right.
that's just my interpretation of the question.
Right. And definitely because and I don't mind if you might I don't mind if you if I could bring a little bit of the internet discourse. I try not to bring internet discourse because it's not real life, but I'm sure there'll be many people who want to kind of hear what your thoughts are on this. And there is a lot of one of the most foolish things that I see is there is this ridiculous debate on whether or not African Americans have culture. I don't know if you've ever seen it, and and they've pinned this divide and rule is just it's disgusting. So they've pinned Africans, right, on the continent against African Americans and like, oh, you don't have culture or you don't, and we're very good at alienating them, right? So now when someone does find it out, I feel like there is still a journey to, in regards to, because how you were raised, right? I think that's what they're trying to get to. We were raised with African, the details within African culture, which for me, I still think that honestly, just so you don't think anything else, I still think that there's something that the African Americans can bring to us, and there's something that we can bring to the African Americans. So I feel like, that's just kind of giving you the perspective
Yeah.
online on that.
Well, so here's the thing. The whole point of slavery was to disconnect us.
Exactly.
It was to steal resources and then keep those resources disconnected from their initial source. And the Europeans were masterful at that.
Right.
So any African who says that African Americans don't have culture, they're just illustrating the
Right.
effectiveness
Right.
of the colonialism that
Right.
occurred. And if you turn on any radio station or any streaming app, let's just talk about music. What do you mean African Americans don't have culture?
Thank you.
Let's talk about the way that we dress, the way we move through the
Thank
world.
you.
What do you mean we don't have culture? No, we
Thank you.
don't have, we were not raised. with Congolese values. No, we were
Right.
not raised with Mandinka values. We were not
Right.
raised with Mbundu values. One,
Right.
that's not our fault. And two, that's not a problem.
Right.
So, I agree with you that that's foolishness. America is African American culture. So when
Thank
you
you.
talk about people like you, who you just said about yourself, you came to America looking for something. I'm sure much of what you were looking for is driven or was driven by African American
Wow.
culture. So
Amazing.
I think it's foolishness, but everybody is entitled to their own opinion. And I think that if you believe that, and if you are, even if you don't believe it, but you're perpetuating it, you're just doing the white man's work.
Right. 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 And just on what you just said there, because I don't know if I'd mentioned it on this or mentioned it when we were off air. Besides the cultural aspect in regards to the music and everything, the number one thing that you guys added to me was my revolutionary mindset.
Mm.
I remember in that Airbnb when I met some African brothers, and we started talking about slavery, and I had never in my life had a conversation about slavery. I'm not even joking. I had never had a conversation about it. I'd never. So here I am talking for the first time, and my first time being in a group of African American guys, just chatting, and regular conversation was, talking about slavery and practice of slavery, whatever. And that was the beginning of it. So it went on and on and on and on. I just kind of got this awakening as I moved through, you know what I mean? And America, and then I even went on to Canada a little bit as well. So I have so much to thank, for you guys for even giving me that, But one of the main things that I feel, and I'm wondering is I'm hearing a lot about intergenerational trauma here in regards to, what happened to us and not. I do think this can, heal us, and it's a major part of our healing. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree. I agree. So it goes back to the Sankofa principle, right? That you have to know where you're from in order to know where you're going. And I'm
Right,
no scientist, I'm no psychologist, or I'm not trained in this area, any of these areas. However, I think you would agree, one of the common approaches that therapists take is to ask you about your past,
right,
to
right,
ask you about your relationship with your mother, ask you about your relationship with your father. What's the first thing you remember about something when you were little?
right,
So we walk around, you just said it. I don't know how long ago, but it was in the 21st century, I'm sure, that you came to the United States. So we're in the 21st century still having to educate people about what happens still every day as Black people in America, regardless of where you come from, having to deal with the impact of slavery.
right,
It doesn't go away. It was institutionalized across all of our institutions. It was
right,
embedded, and we're still feeling the effects. And so you have to, when you understand first that your history didn't start with enslavement,
right,
and then you understand the the breadth and the depth and the beauty of what people who look like you, people who you come from, created, then you start to be able to face what you're dealing with on a daily basis through
right,
a different lens. You've plugged into
right,
your power source, right?
right,
And you're not forward facing as someone who is less than when you
right,
understand all that you come from. So
right,
I do think it can heal some of the traumas, and some of these traumas we see even just in the work we do, right? Because people don't know who their grandparents are.
right,
They don't know their great grandparents' names or where they lived
right,
because nobody wanted to talk about it. They do, or they may not even know other, more recent family history because elders didn't want to talk about it because it was painful. So we keep repeating these patterns because we can't learn about them in order to break them. So yes, that was a long way to say yes.
No, no, definitely amazing. And I definitely do think so. And, you know, one of the other issues that are coming up, and I really want to get your perspective on this, is someone who's, like you said, it's your purpose, you're fighting, you're plowing through. I really want to talk about the pushbacks, which are so disheartening for me. I don't know her name off character. I should really know by now, but I'm just thinking of the name That's So Raven. And I'm thinking of statements that she made where she was like, "Oh, I'm not African American, I'm American," right? And it's this thing of trying to move further away from being African. And we know that there is a movement of African Americans who literally just believe that they came from, they are like indigenous to America and they have nothing to do with Africa. Um, how are we going to address this shame? This shame that's with being attached to Africa, with being attached to what we see as a lowly place. What's your emotional, thought process when you've been facing this, when you maybe even identifying it in some African Americans?
My process is everybody's not going to make it.
Mm,
And I
okay.
don't try to convince Black people that they come from Africa. One of the first things I learned when I started doing this work is from my cousin, who is a full professor of psychology at Howard University, Dr. Cynthia Winston Proctor. And she taught me that identity is a constantly evolving narrative of self.
Hmm.
So you get to be whoever you want to be, whenever you want to be it. If
Mm,
you don't want to be African American, you don't have to be African American. If you just
mm,
want to be American, you can be American. If you just want to be
mm,
if you want to be indigenous, you can be whatever you want to be.
mm,
I'm not here to try and convince you of something that you really do know deep inside. You've
mm,
just chosen not to accept.
mm,
That's your
mm,
that's your right.
mm,
But I do think when you ask how can we get rid of the shame? And that's a deep question. But one thing popped into my head. So we take what we host African ancestry family reunions. And these are specially curated birthright journeys home
mm,
to where you come from. So it's
mm.
helping to close the loop. You plug into the power source, you find out where you're from, and then you go home to meet
Nice.
those people and to become culturally immersed in the lifestyle or whatever it is, right?
Right.
Immersed fully into the culture. So we take these trips to Sierra Leone, Ghana, Cameroon, and Nigeria. And so a couple years ago, there was a couple. We had traced his ancestry to Sierra Leone, and he brought his girlfriend with him.
Right.
And they came on the reunion to Sierra Leone. And she hadn't taken the test. She had no interest in taking the test. She was just coming with her man to be supportive because he was coming to get citizenship and, experience his roots. She
Right.
wasn't dismissive, but it wasn't her thing to know where she
Mm,
was. Well, after 2 weeks in Sierra Leone, they ended up getting engaged, eventually, shortly after that, being married. And then she took the test. So
wow.
her framework, her mindset shifted, right? And
Right.
so we traced her ancestry to the Igbo in Nigeria. So
Beautiful.
this January, she comes on the family reunion with him and
Yeah.
they have this experience. But there's another couple on that trip, and we traced him to Nigeria to the Hausa, and his wife came, and she was not checking for any of it. She again, she wasn't dismissive, but it wasn't her thing. She was like, "Oh no, thank you," kind of thing. I'm just here to support my man, my husband. And then I don't know, 10 days, 9, 10 days, she had FOMO. She saw all of us experiencing our
Wow.
Nigerian culture, the Nigerian community. ecstatic, welcoming us with so much energy and excitement. The access that we had, the food she enjoyed. I can't say I enjoyed it the same as she did, but then she's like, I want to know. I want to know where I'm from. All that to say, I think that's how we can help get rid of the shame
Mm,
is by living boldly, living proudly, sharing
mm,
our experiences with our neighbors, our classmates, our coworkers, and show by example. We change the shame by living by example.
amazing. And that was going to be one of my questions was how are those welcome homes? Are they welcomed? But you've just said it now. They're obviously welcome, which Africans would do because we even welcomed the wrong people. We won't get into that right right now in this episode, but overstayed the welcome. But then we have what? How can we now change these visits home into like long-term partnerships? What that's about
Yeah.
my final question on this.
So I think that's going to take time because for so many people that travel with us, while it's not their first time traveling, it's their first time traveling to Africa. And for all of
Right,
the things that we've been talking about or have been in the background of our conversation, it's an unknown.
right.
So on a first trip to Africa, I don't know how um, effective it would be to successfully convert, and I'm saying that from a business perspective, convert visitors into investors, into philanthropists, into educators, all of those kinds of things. I think the first trip, and that happens, it has absolutely happened, but I think the first trip is more about acclimation and reconnection and developing a comfort level because let's face it, Freetown is different than Raleigh and
Mm,
Lagos is different than DC. Like
mm,
we live in very different places and so you
mm,
have to get to the point where you're
mm,
comfortable and that takes time, but I think after introducing people to the place, um, there is the sky's the limit because
mm.
whatever your interests are, whatever your talents are, whatever your experiences here, it can be multiplied many times
Right,
any country, any city that you visit on the continent. And I think it's our responsibility to share our skills and talents. And so the role that we play right now is as an introduction, a host to make your pathway home, your journey home, a comfortable and meaningful one that educates you and inspires you to
right.
become more involved.
Um, I really thank you so much. You're kind of even introducing, what I want to find out of like is what's your plan for the next 25 years, like when it comes to
Oh,
Black identity? Like what do you see just briefly, like what's your vision?
mm. I don't even know if I can see that far, to be honest, but I would like to see a world where, at least our world, right? The Black world that we live in, I would like to see the barriers removed. So I would like
Right,
to see Africans proud to come to the US, go into a university and interact with African American students instead of being told when they are told you don't want to socialize with them, you don't want to work with them, instead of believing that, them
right,
having enough confidence and understanding to say, no, those are my people. I would like to see a world, a Black world, where African Americans aren't ignorant about Africa, that we
there you go.
know that there are 54 countries and that we know the names of the countries and that
Right,
we understand that there are so many elements of our culture
right,
that we did create, that we had to create in order to
right,
live and thrive here, that are directly tied to our Africanness, to know that we are not the beginning of something, but that we are the extension of something. So I would like to see the barriers come down between us and to defeat those that want to continue to have us disconnected, to deepen the disconnection and sow the seeds of stereotype and disregard between our communities.
Amazing.
And
And
that includes, when I say the Black world, I'm not just talking about African Americans, but our
right.
brothers throughout the Caribbean, brothers and sisters
Yeah,
throughout North
yeah, yeah,
America, the
yeah.
Caribbean, South America, everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ah, amazing. And before we introduce Le Marie, the special guest of the day as well, Doctor, I wanted to just know, please, for the viewers today, our pals, give us one of the most fascinating stories that you have tied to this that you do. I couldn't get away without saying that. Like just one story that's gonna leave us thinking, wow, like that maybe touched you, that you think about it, that you tell all the time.
Yep. So the one I tell all the time, and it's getting to be an old story because he's growing up, but is about a boy named Julian. I met Julian when he was like nine. I think he was 9 or 10. He's a teenager now. And I met him because his mother came up to me at a conference and was like, my son wants to know where he's from. He asked me for your test kit. And I'm like, what? Your son? How old is your son? He's 9. I'm like, whoa, okay. So
Wow.
she got a test kit for Julian and his little sister. And he took the test. They both did the swabbing. They didn't for them to have a full experience, let's just say. And they lived in Dallas at the time. Jasmine is his sister. So we were in Dallas to do an African ancestry event, and we invited Toria and her children and the whole family to the event so we could reveal Julian's results. Now, the
Yes.
reason Julian wanted to know where he was from is because he went to a school that every year had a global day. The school goes global, and it's a multicultural school, which you know what that means. And they put a big, huge map on the wall and tell the kids to put a pin in the country that they come from.
Wow.
And so Julian was very astute as a little kid and was like, Mommy, where am I supposed to put my pin?
Wow.
So this test now gives Julian an answer of where to put his pin. So, and I also should add that he's not a regular kid. Okay. So the reason we met at this conference is because he had a business at 9 and still
Right.
has it called the Step Stool Chef. So his business was teaching other kids how to cook.
Wow.
So he's got
Yeah.
something. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, so we do this reveal, and I tell Julian that he shares ancestry with the Bubi people living on Bioko Island, which is part of
Wow.
Equatorial Guinea. It's where the capital of Equatorial Guinea is found. It's one of the 5 islands off the coast. But it's also my understanding, haven't been there, but my understanding is that it's closer to Cameroon, actually, than it is to Equatorial Guinea. So there's a lot
Mm.
of shared ancestry, a lot of shared lineage between the Bubi on Bioko Island and the Tikar people in Cameroon. So I say, Julian, you share ancestry with the Bubi people and the Tikar people. And I said, how do you feel? Not expecting really that a 9-year-old is going to have much to say. I don't know why I thought that, because he said, now I can put 2 pins in the map. I mean, he was just beaming with pride, beaming with
Wow.
pride. And his little sister was excited, I think probably because she saw him being excited. But it was just that to me was a very powerful moment to
Wow.
see the impact on an elementary school student
Yeah.
who now does not have to feel less than because he doesn't have a
Wow.
place to put a pin on the map. And fast forward, now he's a teenager. I think he's probably getting ready to go to college, but he rocks his Bioko Island t-shirt. You know what I mean? Like he
Um,
has added Cameroonian jollof to his recipes as the step stool
um,
chef. So these are things that he's been able to incorporate, even in some small way, as he's maturing into an adult. He knows who he is.
Beautiful. Dr. Paige, Gina, thank you so much. Let us introduce Leigh Marie, who is also
Yeah.
a Cameroonian. I'm making my guesses, but let me introduce I'm placing my bets. So, guest, we today we have Leigh Marie. Leigh Marie life was really transformed and changed in a moment where someone approached her in the gym and said to her, "Are you Nigerian? Are you an Igbo?" And no, so although it was unexpected, it planted a seed in her, and she took to TikTok. Was like, "Hey guys, I'm wondering where I'm really from." Told the story. The video went viral, and here we are today. And so, also Pan African lifestyle, we then decided to get a hold of African Ancestry, who have now decided today to sponsor Leigh Marie's DNA test. She joins us today with a swab, and we're going to do a full swab on the show today. And we're going to be revealing her results in the following episodes. So today is such a special day. How are you, Leigh Marie?
I'm doing well today and happy to be on the show. Dr. Page dropped some absolute gems today, and I'm happy that I was
Gems.
able to, yeah, I'm happy that I was able to sit in for that. And I just resonate with so many things, especially the latter story about the young boy just being so eager to know where you're from. Like you said, I was at my run club, and Dr. Page talked about passions, and one of mine is fitness and bringing together the community for specifically running. And so I bring out about 100 people, sometimes 300 people every single weekend in downtown Raleigh, and we all,
Awesome.
go around downtown Raleigh running, walking, whatever it is that we do. And so I was having a conversation with one of the fellow patrons that had been there before, and she was asking me just general questions. And she had a woman to the side of her that I saw her out of the corner of my eye, just kind of staring at me, looking at my face, and I was like, I'm just gonna focus on the conversation. And so eventually, she stopped me mid sentence, and she said, "Are you Nigerian?" And it stopped me in my tracks. And the woman that I was speaking with initially, she had actually asked me this question before, maybe a few months prior, the first time that she met me as well. And I asked her, I said, what made you ask that? And she was like, you just look like it. And so back to the conversation earlier about, how you asked your friend where he was from and he said DC, I very similarly said, yeah, my,
Yeah.
my family's from Cali. So
Yes.
I'm not exactly sure where my family is from. But what I do know is that I've been very eager to learn, where my family is from, where my ancestors are from. And I'm excited to, do the DNA test, the swabs to figure that out.
Awesome. And run club. I will have to come one day and join the run club. I'm more of a weights guy, which I'm a bit too heavy
So
for the
am I.
running.
So
I
am
think
I. It's actually funny. I got into running because I needed some more cardio, and then a lot of people ended up joining me. So,
I was thinking, oh, I want to go, but I'm not running. Then when you said walking, I was like, okay, I can
yeah,
go.
we have a little bit of every pace. I'm a slow runner. I'll run anywhere from like an 11 to 13-minute pace some days. We have some people that run, you know, 3 miles in 18 minutes. We have some that walk the full 3 miles. I mean, it's all paces, but yeah, we mainly serve the um, minority populations in Raleigh and in North Carolina, specifically looking at the Black and African American population here. So it's good that we're all able to, get together for the purpose of health. And when we talk about passion, and even when we talk about kind of what you hinted at earlier, this diaspora, I don't want to say war, but just maybe a little bit of adversity of, maybe not knowing where people are from or not understanding the background and the history. I think it's good for us to find a common ground for all of us to come together and at least share some common interests over fitness and running.
oh, Lemery, you said a little bit of stuff off air, so I'm really eager to, and I think what's coming to my mind is what Dr. Gina said in regards to like this found you. You know what I mean? Your passion, your purpose found you, which was like the special part of it, and I think it's so. It could be a coincidence, but also African Americans, you guys are really like spot on when it comes to being revolutionary. So it's not like odd that I bumped into an African American who's doing their piece, playing their part, you know. But I wanted to ask you before I asked that question, how since that moment, how has, you know what I mean, like your perspective on your identity evolved, even before you've even taken the test?
Yeah, so I definitely had a lot of questions to my grandmother, a lot of questions to my mom. Some they were able to answer, and some that they weren't. But I go back to Dr. Paige's earlier conversation, right, about how so much of our identity has been stripped, and of course, it has allowed us to evolve into what we know as Black or African American culture, but there is still this gap of not knowing, you know, hey, where do I actually come from? I know I'm Black. I know I have these features. I know that, you know, on my TikTok video, they were saying, hey, I think you're Nigerian because of the almond eyes and the high cheekbones and the wide nose and the facial structure. But really just wanting to understand, you know, who I am, understanding the lineage, and culturally speaking, some of these traits that are passed down, and then even just beyond culture through our DNA, things that are passed down that I may not even be aware of because I don't know my ancestry. So definitely opening my eyes in that way. But then also, just wanting to have that sense of connection to something that's larger than me, and the reclamation of something that was taken from both me and the people that came before me. I think that there's a sense of me just wanting to connect and to learn. I know a lot of people were saying that, hey, you look Nigerian, specifically, you look Igbo. And so I followed a page that was like teaching me how to speak the language. I can't say that
Wow.
I've learned, how to speak in
Wow.
full sentences, but, at least wanting to know, wanting to try, and also just wanting to connect. And so I definitely think it's helped me to create this kind of sense of longing for what my
Wow.
ancestry is, what my lineage is, but then also this deep want to just connect and figure out, or put a puzzle piece in place, to connect, where my people are from.
Amazing. And now I go into the question I wanted you to share with people. You did mention off air that you do a little bit for the community. You've even said now you do a lot for the Black community. And can you let us fill us in a little bit in the work that you do? And so, yeah.
Yeah, so one of my main projects right now is my run club by the name of Urban Run Club Raleigh. We have been in the Raleigh area for the past year, and it started as just, again, a TikTok video of me just saying, hey, I want to connect with other Black runners that are in the area because I see a lot of cultural differences between Black and non-Black running groups. And there was a
Mm,
specific group in Charlotte, which is about 2 hours away from Raleigh, called Mad Miles. And they are one of the largest Black running clubs in the nation. I mean, they're bringing out thousands of people every single week. And I was like, hey, I would love to see something like that in Raleigh. I don't see that right now. So about 25 people joined our group initially, and we were running at a lake, and we just kept showing up every single Saturday. And from there, it grew from 10 people to, or 20 people to 200 people plus. We've been able to do a lot of different things in the community, and not just, fitness events and running events, but also giving back to, the houseless population that's around downtown Raleigh, encouraging other people to, get involved with some of the initiatives that are going on in downtown Raleigh, doing community cleanups and things like that, and just looking for other ways that we can partner with other community organizations that are in this area. And within the last month, we've actually become an incorporated nonprofit. So looking to, expand our reach and expand the things that we do, helping our community here in Raleigh, but helping people who look like us, right? I think that in
right.
the fitness and the running space specifically, and even just beyond just fitness, and just looking at health and adverse health effects, people who look like me are disproportionately affected in the healthcare system. And when it comes to any healthcare issues, we are disproportionately affected. So it's great to have those kind of proactive measures, doing things like running, doing things like weightlifting, things that are helping to strengthen our bodies, strengthen our minds, so that we can help do some of that preventative care. So that's a lot of what we do, right? Is making sure that we create this safe space for fitness and for other people, but also giving a hand back to our community and saying, hey, we like to be here. We love you all. We love our community, and so we find ways that we can shake hands and handhold with other people around.
Amazing. Amazing. You see, this is why I love African Americans. Sorry, I got two wonderful black women on my show, and I'm just like, yeah, you guys are honestly so vigilant is the term I want to use. And even as I look at you now, you got the sacred locks on. You've been doing this for the community. Surely you were calling this in your spirit some way. Surely you must have been calling this. Do you feel that way?
I do. So it's actually interesting. I in the past year, well, really for the past 5 years, I was working in technology and in the technology space, and I always felt that there was something that was meant for me to bring people together. It's one of
Right,
the natural gifts that I have, bringing community together, and
right.
so I definitely feel that this was something that was meant to be. And even more recently, I've been able to step away from my corporate position to help push forward some of the initiatives that we have with the Run Club, and just with other projects that I have going on. So definitely think that this was spirit led. Definitely think it was a
Yeah,
spiritual decision, and that this
yeah.
is the perfect place and the place that I was meant to be at this current moment.
Amazing. So now I'm gonna bring in again Dr. Gina, and I want you to hold up your swab. I know that you've done it already. Can you explain to the people really quickly how this is gonna work, Dr. Gina?
Sure. So Leigh Marie has a Matchoclan test, and the Matchoclan test is going to research her mother's line going back 2,000 years.
Oh, I'm
So
jealous.
she has her kit. Inside her kit where is three swabs. She has one. She's going to swab the inside of her cheek, um, 20 times on the left, 20 times on the right, and then put each swab into that envelope to return to us. Now, the outer envelope that she returns it to us in has no personally identifying information. Nothing that you have has your name on it, right, Leigh Marie?
Right.
That's
Do this
correct.
intentionally. So it's completely confidential. The lab is just going to see the barcode number on your envelope, and that's how they're going to um, identify you. We in our office, we don't have your DNA, but we know that you are that barcode number. So they are then going to unlock the code, if you will, of DNA that she inherited from her mother. Do you have siblings?
Yes, I do. I have an older sister and a younger brother.
Okay, so you and your siblings all have this same DNA that you got from your mother, that she and her siblings got from your grandmother, that she and her siblings got from her mother and her mother and her mother. It never changed. And if you and your sister have children, you'll pass it to them. They're going to unlock the code of that. We're going to compare your code to the codes of over 33,000 DNA samples in our African lineage database to look for matches. And then if we find an African match, because there's no guarantee, we're African American, that means we're mixed. If we
Mm.
find an African match, which I'm pretty sure we will, 92 out of 100 people, we find an African match. And everybody already thinks you're Igbo anyway. So, um, but when we
Cameroon.
find an African match, we will give you we're not going to say you're some percentage from all these different parts of Africa, basically that you're West African. We're going to say you share ancestry with these people living in this present day country. So all you have to do, and oh, wait, the most important part, second most important part. Once we get her result, our lab destroys the DNA.
Mm.
So we don't
Right.
sell it, we don't share it, we don't research it. We can't because it's gone.
Mhm.
So
Amazing.
yeah, so now all she has to do is just do the swabbing.
I'm so excited. Okay. I'm gonna go
Okay.
ahead
And
and start.
Oh, she's doing it
while
right
she's
now. Okay, let's go.
Okay. Yeah,
while
I'll
she's
do
doing
it.
it, 20 times on one cheek and 20 times on the other, gently, like
Okay.
down inside.
Okay.
While she's doing that, I want to add that these results of her test are the same for everybody in her family who descends from her grandmother or her grandmother's mother. So we're talking about one test that isn't just a gift for Le Marie, but for everybody
Wow.
in the past, everybody living today. I'm talking cousins, nieces, nephews, great aunts, everybody on your mother's side. And those who are coming into the future now, they're not going to be like Julian. They're not going to have to scramble to figure out where they're from
Mm-hmm.
for a class project. They're going to be like,
Mm-hmm.
this is where I'm from. We're going to do this social studies project on my country, on my people.
Amazing. Like I said, full circle moment. I never would have thought I'm 28 now, when I was 19, that, and I had no interest. In fact, I'm going to just say quickly now to end on a funny note. I was as Uncle Tom as Uncle Tom's come. I'm going to tell you guys, I was a proud Uncle Tom. I was proud. And the African Americans awakened me, and that was the first moment. And here I am now, being a part of Le Marie's very special moment, and this is so cool. So you got it there. Make sure nothing gets, do it right, because I'm excited. We're gonna have her back on for another episode, both of them back on, and you guys are gonna get to see it live on the show. So I want to say thank you to all of our viewers. Here at POW, we believe in the African dream. And I just want to say thank you to Dr. Paige for really actualizing this dream, for doing your part. And also thank you to you as well, Marie, for playing your role with the Run Club, for bringing together so many people. And I just really feel like it's amazing when we can all pull our way together. For everyone watching, stay tuned. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
And to our global POW Nation, thank you once again for tuning in. Please keep the conversation alive. Let us know in the comments what part of today's dialogue sparked new thinking, new pride, and new action. I've been your host, Harrison Paul.
Living a dream, living the African dream.